Howdy folks, hope you're all having a great weekend and welcome to the final episode of Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Daemonhunters, at least until they release any DLC, where we have fallen for the Demon Prince Cadex's devious plan to set a trap for Supreme Grandmaster Kaldor Drago and lure him into the heart of the Garden of Nurgle, where he can be ambushed and killed. However, in an act of supreme sacrifice, Inquisitor Cartha Vakir has bound her soul to that of the Demon Prince Cadex, damning herself to an eternity of torment and suffering in the process, but giving us the slim chance that if we purge Cadex, execute him and banish his soul back to the warp when it returns to his master, since it's bound to Cartha Vakir's soul, we'll be able to follow her soul signature back to the Garden of Nurgle, giving us a chance to deploy a small group of Marines in order to assist Supreme Grandmaster Drago as he does battle with the Demon Primarch, Mortarion, for it is none other than he, one of the original 20 Space Marine chapter Primarchs, bred from the gene seed of the Emperor himself who fell to chaos 10,000 years ago. A Demon Primarch so powerful he ranks second only to the great Plague Father, Grandfather Nurgle himself. And that, believe it or not, is the good news. The bad news is I have to do it all without my heaviest hitter, Interceptor Storm, and my only healer, Apothecary Hahn, because I got them both so very badly fucked up on the previous mission when we were defeating the Gatekeeper to the Garden. Now, everybody said, Jingles, you're going to need 2 full squads of Marines for the final mission, and I had planned for contingencies. I had enough Marines to fill out more than 2 full squads, or, I did, until I got Hahn and Storm critically injured.
The Knight's Oath shields are affixed. They are ready.
And yes, well spotted, I'm sure some of you have noticed that this mission is taking place in the Dagobah system. It turns out complex games are they're even bigger nerds than we had at first assumed, so that's good to see. But yeah, Storm and Hahn critically injured, Fool and Chaplain Storm wounded. But I don't have the luxury of choice anymore. With Interceptor Storm and Apothecary Hahn injured, I have precisely 8 combat-capable Marines, so I don't get to pick and choose who goes in. I have to send everybody, wounded or not. First I have to pick a Vanguard squad. This is going to be a squad of 4 Marines who will go in with the Supreme Grandmaster himself to directly confront the Demon Lord Mortarion. Now, full disclosure, this is my second attempt, because I went into it blind. I didn't want any spoilers, and honestly, I think it's highly unlikely that anybody is going to be able to go into this mission blind without watching any guides or spoilers and get it done on normal difficulty or higher on their first attempt, because it seems logical to put your heaviest hitters in up against Mortarion, but that's not necessarily the way to go. The Vanguard Marines need to be Marines who can crit and who can interrupt, which is why on this second attempt I have dropped Librarian Foros from the Vanguard squad, who's normally, by absolute definite must include on every mission choice, along with my second best heavy hitter, Brother Purifier Cadulon, with his ridiculously high damaging Flames of Purity attack. They are going in the Rearguard squad, and you'll see why. Instead, the Vanguard squad consists of double Justicars, because they can both crit, they have the Hammer Hand ability, and 2 Honour the Chapters is never a bad idea. The always reliable Brother Paladin Thule, because he can also crit with his Hammer Hand ability, and he just hits like a truck. And somebody you probably haven't seen an awful lot of so far, Brother Purgator Agravald Crassus, because he is going to be absolutely critical in the fight against Mortarion, for 2 reasons. 1, he has a ranged crit with his Astral Aim ability on his silencer. 2, he also has a ranged interrupt. I'm not going to spend too long showing you the individual squad setups for the Vanguard and the Rearguard. All you need to know is the Vanguard is stacked with Marines who can crit and at least 1 who has a long-ranged interrupt. Everybody else is going into the Rearguard squad, not through choice, but because they're literally all I have left.
massive force of Death Guard approach Lord Drago's position. This squad will hold them off until such time that the bloom roots are cut or we are defeated.
Ah yes, the rearguard squad. I realise I've made it sound like the rearguard squad is going to consist just of the leftovers, and while that's technically true, the leftovers do comprise some very, very strong marines. Brother Purifier Cadulon, for example, is probably my second hardest hitting marine after Interceptor Storm, and also the amazingly useful Librarian Thoros. There's also a second Paladin, Brother Paladin Zabus, and the only other marine I have who is combat capable, even though he is wounded. And honestly, I would have preferred to take just about anything other than a chaplain, because I don't really find chaplains that useful, but he's all I have left. Chaplain Storm. We're ready to go.
Dex, my little spider. What flies have you lured onto our web? I serve only to please, Master. But you said I could have her! Know your place, worm. You failed to silence her spirit, and so she has served a fleeting morsel. But I am yet far from satisfied. If it isn't the Heart Carver and his gleaming knights.
Mortarion. I should have guessed you would be at the root of all this.
Who else could nurture such genius? I carved the raw material for the very first seeds from the corpses of your fallen brethren, hunted and run down like the cowards they are. That Eldari cesspit was a nursery a millennia in the making. These roots I tended from saplings until they could gorge on the billions of souls my reapers have claimed. And now, here at last, Drago, your sacred blood will fertilize the true harvest. The grandfather rejoice! My little garden will finally bear its most luscious fruit. The Morbus is at hand!
Seconds out, round 2. This is a long fight. It took me more than 2 hours. So you're going to be watching the edited highlights, but I'll try to give you a good idea of what it is that's actually happening. So initially the Vanguard has to deal not just with Mortarion himself, but also a couple of his Death Guard Plague Marines. There are going to be more of them. More on that later. We have a Blight Lord Terminator here with an assault cannon. There was another Plague Marine with a hazard spray, and there is another one lurking behind the throne. These guys are just distractions. Mortarion himself is obviously what you need to deal with here. But you can't just run up to him and hit him until he runs out of hit points. I mean, he's got a lot of hit points, 200. Depending on the difficulty level that you're playing on, this is normal difficulty. But he can be stunned. This is why you want to fill the Vanguard with as many Marines as possible who can stack crits on him, even though he does have minus 50% crit vulnerability, which is a problem. But with the Hammer Hand and Astral Aim abilities, you get plus 100% crit chance, so you're still going to have a better than even chance of actually landing a crit on him if you use those abilities. And when you land a crit, you will often get the option of stacking bonus stun on him. He also has a whole bunch of other active and passive abilities, which I'm not going to go into detail now. Instead, we'll deal with them as and when they come up. But there are two other abilities he has that need to be addressed. One of them is this, Imprison. When Supreme Grandmaster Drago is reduced to 0 hit points, he starts eating Dragor's soul. That's why you need an interrupt, and that's why I've brought the Purgator along, because he has a ranged interrupt. The other critical ability that you need to be aware of is this one, Mortal Enmity. And it can be basically summarised as this. Do not attack Mortarion with Grandmaster Drago unless you plan on killing Mortarion that turn, because if you do, Mortarion kind of takes it personally and goes berserk. And you really do not want that to happen. The reason Mortarion takes things so personally with Drago is that a couple of hundred years previously, during the Battle of Cornarvin, I think it was, Mortarion killed the previous Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights chapter. Drago received a battlefield promotion to Supreme Grandmaster, and in his first act he slaughtered his way through Mortarion's bodyguard, knocked into the ground, and carved the name of the previous Supreme Grandmaster on Mortarion's heart.
Yes.
Or one of his hearts. They didn't specify. I mean, he's a demon Primarch, he's got more than one heart. Needless to say, Mortarion takes this sort of thing kind of personally, and there's some bad blood between the two of them. So while it does seem kind of counterintuitive that you wouldn't be using Supreme Grandmaster Drago to attack Mortarion directly in this fight, trust me, it's a bad idea. Plus, he has plenty of other unique abilities that you're going to want to be using. For example, For the Emperor, which drains all of his action points to give every other Marine in the Vanguard a bonus action point.
You cannot harm me here in Grandfather's garden. The bloom sustains us.
And Drago's going to be busy with other stuff as well, because there are plenty of other things during the course of this fight that only he can do. He's the only one who can wield the Titan Sword, for example, and the Titan Sword is the only thing powerful enough to cut the roots of the Chaos Seeds. So he is going to be busy. This is also why you must interrupt Mortarion's Imprison ability. Because if he manages to successfully channel the Imprison ability after Drago's been reduced to 0 health, then Dragor's soul gets eaten, Dragor's gone, and it's not like anybody else can pick up the Titan Sword. So, Drago's got a lot to do in this fight that doesn't involve attacking Mortarion directly. That's what the members of the Vanguard squad are for. Definitely going to want to finish off this Plague Marine before he gets a chance to use that hazard spray. Nice one, brother Crassus. Your only real objective in this initial round is to try to clear out or crowd control as many of the other Plague Marines as you can and get some damage stacked on Mortarion, because that is going to trigger the second phase.
Mortarion has channeled the power of a bloom strain directly. If we weaken him, I may have a hope of severing its root.
This is how the fight's going to go. There are going to be 3 phases that follow each other and repeat until either Mortarion is dead, or Supreme Grandmaster Drago is dead, or all of your Marines are dead. You stack some damage on Mortarion, so he starts channeling from one of the seeds in order to heal, replenish himself, and gain a new ability, at which point you stack further damage on Mortarion with your Vanguard squad. In fact, it's probably easier if I just show you. So, Brother Justicar Iolanthus is going to blat him in the face with his Stormbolter. We may as well buff it with a Psybolt, why not? Bonus damage. Remember, Mortarion can be stunned. Every attack that hits him is going to do at least 1 point of stun damage. A bit of reaction fire there from Brother Purgator Crassus. Iolanthus follows it up. Mortarion is stunned, he's now grounded, and while he's grounded, he has crit vulnerability. So, Brother Paladin Thule moves in. He has been buffed with Honor the Chapter. He has all kinds of bonus action points. He can basically keep doing this all day. I think I'm going to go for the armor break though, because Mortarion does regenerate all of his armor at the beginning of every turn, and hopefully this should reduce the amount of armor that he gets back. Paladin Thule still has 4 action points, so I can basically keep doing this all day, and Paladin Thule hits like a tank. And there it is. We've now weakened Mortarion enough while he was channeling from the first of the Chaos Seeds that the Chaos Seed is now vulnerable. Its roots can now be cut by Supreme Grandmaster Drago's Titan Sword. It does summon a Guardian, of course. There's a Chaos Spawn over there we're going to have to deal with. And while this is happening, you cannot kill Mortarion or even inflict any further damage on him because the Seed is healing him. So, now you've got to get the Grandmaster over there and cut the roots of that Seed. This Chaos Spawn's going to be a bit of a problem though. It moved right up next to the Supreme Grandmaster, and it will get a reaction attack off against it if I try to move straight to the roots of the Seed. But hey, Justicar Balls is here. Justicar Balls is only rank 8 by the way, but he's still a bit of a badass. He's got tier 3 mastercrafted gear, and he's still a Justicar, so he can still do the Hammer Hand crit ability. And he can still do Honor the Chapter. And we are going to have to use Honor the Chapter here, although it's not Justicar Balls who's going to be doing it. I need to kill this Chaos Spawn. I mean, I don't want it running around. So, Justicar Iolanthus, Honor the Chapter please. And yeah, we're going to warp charge this because we're going to need the full 3 bonus action points. So, Justicar Balls gets to have another go.
Standing ready.
I don't really want to Force Strike this because Justicar Balls' Force Strike doesn't do any extra damage, it just does a blast and a knockback, which isn't terribly useful here.
Yes.
I mean, he's still doing 6 damage per hit, but despite that, he's still going to need a bit of help from the Supreme Grandmaster. So, yeah, we'll go for bonus damage. It's going to drop this thing down to 18 health. And not only that, it's been getting hit so much, the next hit is going to stun it, which is nice. So, go on, Justicar. Right. Give me the execute. Why isn't it giving me the execute? I want my extra action points. Oh, whatever. It's dead. Now, with the Supreme Grandmaster's 2 remaining action points, we cut the root of the Seed. Mortarion doesn't like that. But this is how we get the fight into phase 3. Enter the rear guard. The leftovers. We must now defend the entrance of the cathedral so that the Plague Guard Marine reinforcements do not get to interrupt the Vanguard as they handle Mortarion. And this is a lot harder than it sounds, because there are an absolute shit ton of reinforcements coming in from all directions.
I smell your warded souls.
You are almost certainly not going to be able to stop all of them from getting through. It helps if you can stack the rearguard squad, as I have done in this my second attempt, with the Marines who do the most area of effect damage, which is why I'm moving Brother Paladin Zabus to that choke point over there, because they're not getting through that as long as he's alive, and he can also nuke down a bunch of enemies at once with his Fury of the Ancients ability. Other critically important members of the rearguard squad, who I originally had in Vanguard on my first attempt, the one that failed, are Brother Purifier Cadulon, who can lay down a Prometheum flame barrier in order to slow down and impede the enemy's advance, and I did get kind of unlucky there. Laying that Prometheum fire barrier down expends all of his ammunition. He does have a 50% chance that when his ammunition is expended, he will reload for free. I didn't get it there. But I can move him over here and do the same to hopefully block the advance of these guys. And cross my fingers and hope for the free reload. Come on then. And yep, there it is. Awesome. Another great thing about Brother Purifier Cadulon, or at least my Brother Purifier Cadulon, is that I was lucky enough to get a set of armor for him that gives him an extra action point, so he gets 4 actions rather than 3. And then, of course, another great area of effect damage dealer, the always reliable Brother Librarian Foros, who I also initially had in the Vanguard squad during the attempt that failed, because, well, he can't really do any crits. I mean, he can, if he gets lucky. He doesn't have any abilities that guarantee crits. So, he is far, far better off with that Vortex of Doom and his Psychic Shriek. Far better off in the rear guard. And then, of course, we come to Brother Chaplain Storm, who honestly, he's just a tiny bit shit. I don't find chaplains that useful. I mean, we can use him as a sort of willpower battery. He does have the ability to transfer willpower to other members of the squad, and he is in Terminator armor. He is kind of tough and tanky, and he does kind of hit pretty hard single target. Situationally, his buffs and his litanies can be pretty useful, but honestly, the only real reason that Chaplain Storm is in the rear guard is because I had run out of Marines and I didn't have anybody else. Remember, the objective of the Plague Guard reinforcements is not to kill your rear guard. It's to get through the rear guard to the door of the cathedral so that they can kill the vanguard and assist Mortarion directly. So your objective with the rearguard squad is to, well, try to kill all of the reinforcements, although you're probably not going to be able to, there are just too many of them. But kill as many of them as you can, while trying to ensure that any survivors that make it through are on as low health as you can possibly manage, so that the vanguard can mop them up quickly and efficiently. Because the Vanguard have better things to worry about than a bunch of Plague Marines, what with the whole Demon Primarch trying to murder everybody thing that they have going on. Don't underestimate how hard the job of the rearguard is, because while the Plague Marine reinforcement's objective is not to kill the rearguard, it's to simply bypass them and get inside the cathedral, that doesn't mean they're not going to take the opportunity to slap 7 different shades of shit out of the rearguard if the opportunity presents itself. They absolutely will. And it's extremely unlikely, despite your best efforts and squad composition, that you're going to be able to stop all of those Plague Guard reinforcements from making it inside the cathedral. You just have to try to kill as many of them as you can. And any that you cannot kill, try to at least make sure that they're on as low health as possible. Because once either all of the reinforcements are dead, or they've made it through into the cathedral, it's straight back to phase 1 again, and you rejoin the Vanguard, and do the whole thing over again. It was at this point where Mortarion showed off another one of his special abilities, the Power of the Bloom. He's targeting 2 of my knights, inflicting 1 damage to them, and immobilizing them until someone comes to their assistance.
Ever since you dared carve that name on my heart, our fates have been entwined. Your part in this was my design. I will heap misery on your accursed chapter.
Fortunately for Justicar Balls, the Supreme Grandmaster was standing next to him. I'm going to send Iolanthus over here to do the same. Brother Purgator Crassus, because I'm going to need Crassus. There are some Plague Marines that have made it through. Need to kill them as quickly as possible so we can continue the beatdown on Mortarion and try to get this fight back into phase 2 again, which is primarily going to consist of Brother Paladin Thule, who was my original Purgator, by the way. I don't know if you can remember that far back, but then he undertook a quest in order to join the ranks of the Paladins. But this is primarily going to consist of Brother Paladin Thule running up to Mortarion and smacking him in the face as hard as he possibly can with his Force Halberd. Right then, Iolanthus. Actually, yes. Not Iolanthus. Justicar Balls. I'm looking for an Honour the Chapter here. I need some bonus action points on Purgator Crassus so we can start clearing up those Plague Marine reinforcements. And I don't want to use Iolanthus as Honour the Chapter because he's close enough to actually assist him in clearing up the reinforcements or hit Mortarion some more. And using his Honour the Chapter would cost 1 of his action points. Justicar Balls is too far away to do anything useful other than provide an emergency infusion of AP. So we use his Honour the Chapter on Purgator Crassus. And let's see what I can start doing to start thinning out the numbers of these Plague Marine reinforcements. Oh, that guy is in cover. Okay. Bollocks. This one isn't. Yep, that's good. There's no point in doing a disrupt shot. He's not channeling anything. He's just going to shoot him away.
Get down!
He did have a lot of health though. So we're just going to have to shoot him a lot. And again. Here's the problem. Only got one action point left. And that shot will stun the Plague Marine, but there's nobody, with the possible exception of Iolanthus, who's close enough to finish him off with an Execute. On the other hand, if I use the Astral Aim ability, which is basically a ranged crit, it might do enough bonus crit damage to kill him. And yep, job done. Purgator Crassus also has the special ability where if he gets a crit, there's a 50% chance he'll have his action point refunded. So he still has another action point, which I can use to start clearing up more of these Plague Marines. I don't think I'm going to be able to kill any more of them though, which is a bit of a bummer.
Yes.
So, Supreme Grand Master, what can I do with you? Well, I can start heading him in the direction of the next seed that Mortarion is channeling from, because I'm going to need to get him over there once Mortarion's been grounded in order to cut the roots of the seed. So we'll go ahead and do that. That leaves Justicar Balls, who honestly is not really in much of a position to do anything except maybe go over here to back up the Supreme Grandmaster if he needs it. Now then, Iolanthus, we really, really do need to get Mortarion on the ground again. We'll go for the crit. And we didn't get the crit. Remember, while he's in the air, he has minus 50% crit vulnerability. That just leaves Crassus. And he's only got the one action point left. So we are going to take some damage from these Plague Marines in the next turn. Unfortunately, the rear guard just couldn't stop all of them from getting through. Let's get Crassus out of the way and leave the guys with the heavy armour in the line of fire. He's going straight for Justicar Balls, who manages to get a reaction attack off and do a little bit more damage. Unfortunately, Mortarion hits kind of harder than he does, and he's managed to hobble the Grand Master. So he's not moving quickly, and I really kind of need him to be there. What are these guys doing? Healing? Healing is good. I don't mind healing. I do, however, mind the hazard spray, which stops me from closing in and getting melee executes. They are still burning though from the Prometheum spray that Purifier Cadulon did outside in the rearguard, so that's good. Not a huge fan of this Overwatch though. Actually, the Overwatch isn't going to be a huge problem because we've got Crassus back here and his default ranged attack can be powered up to become a disrupt shot, which interrupts Overwatch and all kinds of other things. So, sucks to be you. And then we'll shoot again. And there I was thinking that Purgators weren't that useful. Honestly, I actually don't think I could have done this fight without him. Because, well, no, actually I don't think I could have done this fight without Purgator Crassus. Because aside from his disrupt shot, the only other ranged interrupt that I have is Librarian Foros's Psychic Scream. And I need him in the rear guard. And as you're going to see, having a ranged interrupt is kind of critical for this fight. Let's go and stack some more damage on Mortarion, because I really do need to get him grounded so I can cut the roots of that second seed. Paladin Thule, step forward, because you just hit really, really hard. There we go, he's been stunned and grounded. Now he has, like, I don't know, 1000% crit vulnerability. He's going to get crit. Justicar Balls. Do it. Yeah, I'm not sure what Lantern Strike is, but if it's one of Mortarian's abilities, I'd definitely rather he didn't have it. And just keep hitting him. He's down to 122 health. Hit him again. Down to 120 health. And here we go. So the next Chaos Seed's roots are now vulnerable. It is being protected by a fetid bloat drain. But that's not a problem. But this is the basic sequence of events. Phase 1. Stack enough damage, or more accurately, stack enough stun on Mortarion that you can ground him and start inflicting crits on him. At which point he will start channeling and healing from one of the Chaos Seeds. At which point you have to get the Supreme Grand Master, or Supreme Grand Master's Titan Sword, over to that seed so you can sever its roots. Then Mortarion summons reinforcements. It's over to the rear guard, try to prevent as many of those reinforcements from getting through, and then we go back to phase 1. Rinse and repeat until such time as either Mortarion is dead or you are. Now, I'm not going to take you through every single phase of this fight, because if I did, we'd be here all day, and doubtless some of you might enjoy that, but I'm pretty sure most people wouldn't have the patience to sit around and watch a 2-hour-long video. However, there was at least one notable incident that occurred during the remaining hour or so before this battle reached its conclusion. Chaplain Storm went down. Again. This wasn't the first time it had happened. I'd already picked him up using one of the Medicaid servo skulls and gotten him back into the fight on 50% health. But then he just ended up getting plagued again and went down again. Fortunately, Supreme Grandmaster Drago has another very useful ability, the ability to basically pick up any member of the rearguard squad who goes down in battle and get them straight back into the fight. From then on in, it was just a really hard slog. I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like trying to do this fight on a difficulty higher than normal. It was brutal on normal, and that's with a fully tricked out squad of Marines. I mean, okay, with the exception of Justicar Bors. He's not rank 9, but he is rank 8, and he's still covered in some of the best gear in the game. And okay, I'm doing it without the benefit of Apothecary Harn or Interceptor Storm, and Interceptor Storm has always been my #1 source of damage. But Librarian Foros does some pretty mean damage too, as does Purifier Cadulon, for example, who does a frightening amount of area of effect damage. The thing is, neither of them would have been useful in the Vanguard. I did actually have them in the Vanguard on my first attempt, where their inability to stack crits and stuns or do interrupts basically doomed my first attempt to failure. You still need them, just in the rearguard, where their area of effect damage abilities are going to do you the most good. And I'm not going to lie, I did miss having Interceptor Storm around, and I would much rather have had Apothecary Harn in the rearguard than Chaplain Storm. But you make do with what you have, and honestly, even without Interceptor Storm, my Vanguard squad couldn't really have been that much better. Because Purgator Crassus can do ranged interrupts, and he can do ranged crits, something that Interceptor Storm couldn't do. Although Interceptor Storm can just teleport and cover the distance to something that needs to be critted, but having the ability to just stand where you are and crit and interrupt something from the other side of the room is very, very useful during this fight. This fight that was rapidly drawing to a conclusion. Well, not rapidly, it took hours. This fight that was eventually drawing to a conclusion. I'm not quite sure how many of those routes we'd managed to cut at this point. A lot. I think there may have only been one of them left. But the rearguard squad are all on their last legs. The Vanguard squad are spread all over the place dealing with the reinforcements that got through, and they're running kind of low on willpower. And now we've got a Dreadnought to fight. While Mortarion has cornered the Supreme Grand Master. Things are looking very, very dodgy. So how are we going to worm our way out of this one? Well, Paladin Thule can still make it all the way over there and have a couple of action points left. His mobility is exceptionally good, and he's got enough willpower to do another Fury of the Ancients. And yeah, we're going to Warp Charge it, because right now we need damage. That thing does hit very, very hard, even if you're only using it on one target. Mortarion definitely did not like that. Paladin Thule only has the 1 action point left. And I was going to just hit him with a regular 4-strike, and then I remembered I can still use the hammer hand. And he may get the action point back on a crit. And despite Mortarian's crit vulnerability, or lack of crit vulnerability, we did manage to land a crit. He does get the action point back. And Mortarian is very, very low on health now. And he's about ready to be stunned as well. Oh, and we've grounded him. He now has all kinds of bonus crit vulnerability. Right. Fuck the Dreadnought. I don't give a shit about the Dreadnought anymore. Iolanthus, get your ass over here and hit him. It's a guaranteed crit because he's grounded, so there's no need to use your hammerhand ability. There we go. 5 bonus damage. Do it. He's down to 9 health and his armor is gone. Oh, come on. Oh, crap, no, he's been healed up by the seed. Hit him again. Hit him again harder. Come on. Yes! Fuck you, Mortarian, and the horse you rode in on.
Drago! You cannot win! Cadex, you treacherous worm! What have you wrought? I did only as requested, Master! Plague comes for the Imperium. I have eternity to ensure it festers.
Yeah. Fuck off. There was one thing that I may have neglected to mention. This is a one-way trip for all of my Marines. They can't go back. They now share the same burden as the Supreme Grand Master, doomed to wander the warp until death takes them. I suppose there are worse fates for a Grey Knight, and the chapter will remember them.
The perpetual coward. I expect nothing less from those who betrayed humanity. Some, however, take courage to the limits of folly.
You will forgive the commander. He simply obliged an old man's wish to see duty's end.
I would not begrudge a knight his sense of duty, but you must leave if you can, now. Mortarian's failure here has sparked the fury of the Plague God. We will draw their attention if we may, inform the Grand Masters of what happened here.
Commander, sensors detect conspicuous forms converging on our position.
We must depart. I envy you, my brothers.
Know that they fight on with courage and honor. Even as the bloom decays beyond, we will infect the realms of chaos with our purity.
We return to Titan. Brothers, you will be welcomed into the Hall of Champions.
And that, kids, was Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Daemonhunters, published by Frontier Foundry and developed by Complex Games. And that is one of the best and most well-written games I have ever played. I am now done. And instead of having the final words, for once I'm going to leave that honour up to Brother Purifier Ector and Dominus Lunette. Be pure, be vigilant, behave.
And she lost her soul to chaos. We had feared her fallen, but in truth, I misjudged her strength of will. In the end, she fulfilled an inhuman duty. Cartha Vakir sacrificed herself to preserve life and carve a path for hope in the future. She did so, realizing that the price would be an eternity of torment. She is a credit to the Inquisition and has truly humbled this Grey Knight. Go, relay this to your masters.
The bloom fades.
Another triumph, purchased at a bitter price.
We have delayed our return to Titan for too long, Hector. The Edict yearns for respite. Our duty forward is clear.
Yes. Duty. What say you, Commander? Are we finished here? As effusive as ever, eh? Dominus, set course for Titan.